this advanced English lesson with the news, we're going to read a news article together so you can speak English in only 30 minutes. Welcome back to J4S English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started.
Our headline, it might be time to reparent yourself. Here's how to get started. Notice here, this is our modal of probability, might. So it's saying something could happen, but also could not happen. It's just a probability or a possibility. It might be, now after modals, you use your base verb. It might be time to reparent. Now notice here, this word is in quotes, a single quote, which means it's not a universally accepted term. Now the term is reparent. Without this the verb is to parent. You might be more familiar with parent as a noun. She's his parents, his mom and dad. So parents together, mom and dad. A parent could be a mom or a dad, a parent. But here it's to parent. Now, when you add re before a verb, it means to do it again. I need to re-watch this lesson because I learned so much. So that would be your verb to mean watch again. Using parent as a verb, you might say it's hard to parent a teenager. So this is your verb to parent. Now, said a different way, but the meaning is the same. You can say it's hard to be a parent. So in this case, a parent means a mom or dad. It's the noun, and the verb is be, to be a parent. And then you would add the preposition to a teenager. So these two sentences have the same meaning. It's just one uses the verb form and one uses the noun form. So to reparent means to parent again, but in this context, it isn't your child, your teenager, it's yourself. So that's the topic of this article. And the next part, here's how to get started. So this is commonly used to provide instructions. Here's how to learn English with the news. Here's how to download this lesson or this PDF, for example. So that would be to provide an instruction. Here is as a contraction. Here's how, and then your infinitive. You can also use a subject and a verb. So equally, I could say, here's how you can download the PDF. So this one, the first one, here's how to download, just sounds more natural. It's not directed at a specific person. It's to anyone. But in this case, the you is the more royal you, which means anyone as well. And this is our modal verb. And then you can download. So download is a verb as well, but it's modal plus base verb. Now there is a free lesson PDF for this, so don't worry about taking notes. To download it, simply look in the description and click the link. Coming back to the headline, here's how to get started. Now, of course, you could simply say, here's how to start, because you can use start as a verb. But in this case, get is your main verb, and then started is being used in the participle form. But using get started instead of start, it has the same meaning, but get started is more conversational. It also sounds more friendly, more encouraging, whereas here's how to start, it sounds more direct, a little more formal. But here's how to get started, it sounds friendly and encouraging. I could ask you, are you ready to get started? And then you can say, I'm ready. Jennifer, I'm ready. So if you're ready, put I'm ready. Put that in the comments because this was just the headline. So let's get started with the main article. Okay, here we go. If you spend much time on mental health Instagram or therapy talk, you might have come across talk of how to reparent yourself or your inner child. So here again, reparent, you have it in a double quote. I don't know why they had it in a single quote here and a double quote. They both are saying that this concept of parenting again, adding re, is not universally accepted. So it's not an official term. So if you spend much time on mental health Instagram, this is a noun. If you were to use a verb, you need a gerund verb because you spend time doing something. So if you spend much time scrolling on mental health Instagram, now maybe you talk about this in the negative and say, I don't spend much time. Now still your verb in ing, reading articles on TikTok. And you don't have to use the word time. If you said, I spend all weekend, but this represents time, right? So this is still a gerund expression. I spent, this is the past simple of to spend. I spent all weekend watching, the verb in ing, watching J4's English lessons. I'm so happy to hear that. Hopefully you did. So if you spend much time on mental health Instagram or scrolling on, this is not required here, but if you were to use a verb, scrolling on mental health Instagram or therapy talk, you might have. What is this? This is a contraction. Now, contractions are not slang. Contractions are legitimate words. They're in the dictionary. They perhaps are more informal, but they're also widely used and preferred by native speakers in most contexts. So this is the contraction of might have, because you might have come across. So that's the sentence structure there. You might have come across. So if you come across something, in this case, the something is talk of how to reparent yourself. So talk of just represents people sharing information. So maybe it was an article, maybe it was a video, maybe it was a GIF, whatever that information is. And if you come across that information, it means you see it, but you weren't purposely looking for it. So you were just looking for updates on what your friends were doing, or you were just killing time while you were waiting for your tea to finish steeping. And then you're scrolling on TikTok or Instagram and you see an article on reparenting yourself, but you weren't purposely looking for that. So that is come across. Let's continue. Maybe you rolled your eyes. So I don't know if I did it very well, but so we roll our eyes in frustration, disgust, annoyance. So if your friend, your spouse, your boss does something that annoys you or frustrates you, you go like this. But hopefully they don't see you doing that because they could get upset because they know what that means. Maybe you rolled your eyes and kept scrolling. So this is suggesting that if you came across some article about reparenting, you might think like, oh, this is dumb, or I don't need this. This is a waste of time. So it's suggesting you thought of it negatively when you first came across it. So that's important that they included it here. Maybe you rolled your eyes. Now this is in the past simple because it's at that time when you saw the article, when you came across the article. And notice eyes is always plural because we have two, and it's also possessive. So to whoever the subject is. In this case, the subject is you. So that's why it's your eyes. But maybe it's she rolled her eyes at my joke. So she didn't think my joke was very funny. She rolled her eyes. So again, maybe you rolled your eyes and kept scrolling. So you just ignored this article on reparenting yourself and you kept scrolling. But if the concept intrigues you, so if something intrigues you, it means it causes you to have curiosity about it. You want to learn more about it. You're fascinated by it. Here, it's the active verb to intrigue. So something, the concept intrigues someone, and then you have to conjugate your verb. But if the concept intrigued you, so in the past simple, at that time. But this verb is commonly used in the passive voice because we want to put the focus more on ourselves. For example, I was intrigued. So your verb, of course, is the verb to be. This is always in the ED form. I was intrigued by that article on reparenting I came across on TikTok. So if you want to focus more on you experiencing the emotion rather than the something causing the emotion. So it's very commonly used that way. But if the concept intrigues you, if you were intrigued by the concept, there's good reason. Reparenting is actually a helpful framework. Okay, so notice they use this word actually. Why did they do that? I'm asking this because many students use actually incorrectly. Actually is not used to emphasize something. It's used to correct a false assumption or to emphasize the correct information when someone is thinking something different. So for the easiest explanation is someone might say, oh, you stayed home last night, right? They assume the information and you say, actually, I worked. So you use actually to correct that assumption. Now, remember, the assumption is that this article on reparenting is going to be annoying or disgusting or cause some sort of negative feeling inside of you. That's why you rolled your eyes at it. So that's what they're correcting. They're saying is actually a helpful framework because the assumption is that it wouldn't be helpful for whatever reason. Reparenting is actually a helpful framework that a growing number of therapists use with their clients.
Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson.
Imagine a 3-year-old is on a swing set. A swing set. This is a swing, so you have the seat the child sits on, and then there's 2 ropes or 2 chains, and then a swing set is just 1, 2, or 3 swings within a metal or wooden frame. So you see these at parks or even in people's backyards. So a swing set. Now imagine this is in the imperative. The imperative is just the base verb and it's used to provide instructions or orders. So if I say download the free PDF, I'm providing that to you as an instruction. Download the PDF. Imagine a 3-year-old. So I want you to do this. Imagine, create that image in your mind. Now, a 3-year-old, this represents a noun form because this is a child who is 3 years old. Now this 3-year-old, this is the adjective, so it doesn't take an S. That's why you don't have an S here. But if you say, imagine a child who is 3 years old on a swing set, then you would have the S. So let's continue. Imagine a 3-year-old child is on a swing set and tries to jump off, but falls. They scrape their knee. So if you scrape your knee, it means that you cause some bruising or bleeding on your knee. So kids, they commonly get a lot of scrapes. A scratch would be more of a like one vertical line, or it could be a horizontal line, where a scrape is more of, I guess it's a larger area. They scrape their knee and naturally start crying. So here, this naturally is used to say this is a normal reaction for a child. So you can use this in other situations. I saw her at the party and naturally I said hello. Or he told a rude joke and naturally I rolled my eyes because that's a normal thing to do in that situation, in my opinion. So that's how you can use naturally to almost justify the action by saying that's the normal thing to do in that situation. So I could say, when you speak in English, you will naturally make mistakes, to let you know that's the normal thing to happen. So here's that example so you can see how to write it out. He told a rude joke and naturally I rolled my eyes. Now remember, information between two commas can be removed from the sentence. So if I remove this naturally, he told a rude joke and I rolled my eyes. It's still grammatically correct, which is what needs to happen. And if you add it back, it just gives more information. It makes it sound like I think my action was justified, the normal, natural thing to do in that situation. So let's review this again. They scrape their knee and naturally start crying for their caregiver. Now here they're using caregiver to be more inclusive because sometimes children do not have a mother or father, which is a parent, in this situation or with them for a large part of their development as a child. It may be a nanny, a babysitter, an older sibling, a grandparent, a family friend. So it could be any number of other people who also care for the child. So that's what the word caregiver represents, is just more inclusive. The way their parent or caregiver reacts in this situation. So here again, like I said, they're being inclusive, parent, and then many children have alternative situations. So caregiver is more broad. The way their parent or caregiver reacts in this situation or any distressing event in childhood is crucial. So crucial means extremely important. So if your boss says it's crucial, notice that pronunciation, crucial that you finish the report before you leave today, I wouldn't leave without finishing that report because I know it's not just important, it's crucial. It's extremely important. Let's continue. When a kid is freaking out, oh, this is a really good phrasal verb. It's to freak out. And notice here it's in the present continuous because it's taking place now. The kid is freaking out right now. To freak out is to have a strong, intense emotional reaction. But that reaction can be positive or negative. So you could say she freaked out when she won the award. So she started, oh my God, I won, and started crying uncontrollably. But again, she's very happy, but it's a very strong, intense, happy, positive emotional reaction. She could freak out when she lost the award. So she starts crying in upset, sadness, anger, frustration. So it can be positive or negative. So when a kid is freaking out, in this case, it probably sounds negative because they talked about scraping their knee after they fell off a swing set. For a child, that can be very traumatic. So when a kid is freaking out, it's because they don't have the brain development to calm down. Ooh, to calm down is if your emotional reaction is up here, you want to bring that emotional reaction and your emotional state lower and lower and lower until it's more neutral. So in this example, if you have this crucial report, but you must leave work at 6 o'clock and it's 5:30, you're not done the report, you might start freaking out, becoming really upset, and then your coworker tells you to calm down. You need to calm down. You need to calm down. So that's how you could use all three of these. Freak out and calm down, they go hand in hand. They're the perfect pair. So they need their caregiver, says Ariel Armas, PhD. Ideally, the caregiver would come to their aid. So to their aid means if you come to someone's aid, it means you provide support, you provide help. That might be to help someone finish a report. So you can come to your coworker's aid and help them finish the report. Or it can also be used if someone is injured. So you provide help or support if a child is crying because they're injured because they scraped their knee. So ideally, the caregiver would come to their aid, would help them, and soothe the child. So to soothe someone, you might need to soothe your best friend, your mother, father, your boss. You could soothe anyone. You try to make them feel better and also help them calm down. So maybe you rub the child's back, you kiss the child, you hug the child. So those would all be ways you would soothe the child. In this context, maybe you just tell them, it's okay, everything will be fine. How about I get you some water? So that could be how you soothe an adult. A good replacement word would be comfort, and comfort someone, the child. Now notice the pronunciation is soothe. You have the voiced th, soothe, soothe. And it's a long oo sound, soothe. Soothe the child in this scenario. Teaching them how to calm down, so reduce their emotional reaction, how to calm down, and that they are worthy of being cared for. So notice, to be worthy of, and then something, you could say worthy of love, worthy of support, or worthy of doing something. In this case, receiving something, being cared for. A good replacement for worthy is the verb deserve. The sentence structure would be that they deserve care, so a noun. If you wanted to use a verb, you would use the infinitive, and it makes sense to use the passive voice, that they deserve to be cared for, because they're receiving the action, not doing the action. That they deserve care, to be cared for, that they are worthy of care, of being cared for. And of course, both of these, deserve or worthy, it means that the care is rightfully theirs. Let's continue. But if the caregiver doesn't help, it may have lasting effects. So lasting here, it's being used as an adjective. It means effects that last a long time. So you can use lasting as an adjective to make it a lot shorter rather than saying it may have effects that last a long time. These wounds from caregivers. Now notice here, in this context, they're talking about an emotional wound. A wound is an area of your skin or anywhere on your body that is damaged. So maybe there is a cut, a scrape, you hurt it in some way, it's bleeding, maybe it's infected. It can be minor or it can be serious. So that would be a wound. But in this context, they're talking about emotional wounds. So you can't see it visibly, but it's damage on your inside, basically. So these emotional wounds, but they're not using that word. It's just implied based on the context. These wounds from caregivers can show up in all your adult relationships. So in this case, can show up, it means can appear, can be visible in. Not just the romantic or platonic ones, but your work or acquaintance relationships as well. So if you have a platonic relationship, this means that you have a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, but it is not romantic. So it would be, I have a relationship with a man and we're good friends. We spend a lot of time together, but it's not romantic in any way. So maybe it's a childhood friend and I view him more like a brother or a cousin or a family member. So that would be platonic. But your work or acquaintance. So notice the pronunciation. This can be difficult. Acquaintance. An acquaintance means that you know someone, but not well enough to call them your friend. So I would say I'm acquaintances with one of my neighbors. I know them. I know their names. I say hello, but I don't really know anything about their lives. We don't socialize together. So they're my neighbors. They're my acquaintances, but they're not my friends. So this part is saying these emotional wounds from caregivers can impact all your relationships, close ones, romantic ones, casual ones, all your relationships. Let's continue. If your caregiver didn't show up for you, so in this case, show up, it does mean appear like we have it here. But if you show up for someone, it means more that you appear in their life consistently as someone they can rely on, depend on, someone who supports them. So it's a similar but additional meaning than simply the phrasal verb show up, to show up for someone. Another phrase that's very commonly used is if your caregiver wasn't there for you. So you may know this one. You might say, oh, my husband's always there for me. My sister's always there for me. Or I'm always there for you. So we use this to say, I will always provide support in whatever way you need that support. So to be there for someone, that's the expression to be there for someone. And in this one, it's to show up for someone. This one is probably the more commonly used one, but this one is certainly common as well. If your caregiver didn't show up for you when you needed them, you might believe your needs are not important or worth tending to. Okay, so notice worth is a gerund verb. So the verb that follows is in the ing form. So remember before we saw worthy of, and then you would have your verb in ing. And it was to be worthy of. So you could say your needs are not important or are not worthy of tending to. So in this case, it's to be worth tending to. And the phrasal verb tend to, here it's in the ing form as we discussed because of worth, but to tend to means to look after or care for. So notice here, if you use look, it's look after, to look after, or to care for. So here, just to be consistent, I'll put this in the ing form because I had that in. Worth looking after, worth caring for. Now, we commonly use the phrasal verb to tend to with something living. So you can tend to your child, tend to your pets. And we also commonly use this with plants because, of course, they're living. So you will hear, if I don't tend to my plants, they'll die. That's an obvious statement. But you might hear someone say, my garden needs tending to. So my garden needs care, and my care, my attention, that's what it would mean here. So we use tend to specifically with something living. Okay, so you might believe your needs are not important or worth tending to, taking care of, or looking after, even if your logical mind can realize external factors were to blame. So were to blame, these external factors, this sounds like as an adult, you understand that maybe your parent didn't show up for you when you fell off the swing set for many different reasons. you know it isn't something overly negative. So it's saying even if your logical mind can realize that external factors were to blame. So to blame were the reason why your caregiver didn't show up for you in your time of need. This can cause you to have anxiety. So the fact that caregivers didn't open up for you or didn't show up for you, so that is this can cause you to have anxiety in relationships and not set boundaries. So if you set boundaries, it means you identify what actions or behaviors you will allow and not allow. So in a workplace context, maybe your boundary is, so boundary is the noun, and then set means to establish, to put in place. So maybe your boss always last minute asks you to stay late, but you have to set a boundary and let your boss know that if you need to stay late, they have to tell you in advance, because you have to make arrangements for someone to pick up your kids or water your plants or whatever it might be. So you need to set that boundary and say, I leave work at 6 o'clock unless I get 24 hours notice. So that's my rule. That would be setting a boundary. Okay. So establish, and you can establish these in your personal life, your workplace life, with friends, family, whatever that might be. So this can cause you to have anxiety in relationships and not set boundaries and instead act as a people pleaser. So a people pleaser, this is a noun. So it describes someone. So you might say, she is a people pleaser, or my friend is a people pleaser, or I'm a people pleaser. A people pleaser is someone who doesn't want to do something, but says yes because they know it will make the other person happy, even if it causes problems in their own lives. So if your friend says, can I stay in your house? And it would actually be very difficult for you to have your friend in your house, but you say yes because it will make your friend happy, even though it causes you a lot of stress. That is a people pleaser. So it's not a positive thing, because it sounds positive to want to say yes to people and make them happy, but it's calling someone a people pleaser is it's a problem. It's something that they should stop doing, or at least try to reduce. So let's review this again. Act as a people pleaser because seeing others happy makes you feel safe emotionally. Now here they added emotionally. Now remember here when they were talking about wounds, they didn't add emotionally. So emotional wounds, because emotional is an adjective, it describes the wounds. But in this case, it is safe emotionally, so it's an adverb. Let's continue. The result, you may need to reparent yourself. So everything we just read provides the reason why you may need to reparent yourself, which means to parent yourself again. So here, which simply means, so they explain what they mean by parent yourself again, reparent yourself, which simply means you give yourself what you didn't receive from your caregiver as a child. So that situation where the caregiver didn't show up for the kid when they scraped their knee, you can give yourself that support or love you wanted at that time. Whether it's providing yourself emotional validation or preparing the kinds of meals you are never offered. Learning how to reparent yourself can help heal childhood wounds. So here they described what type of wounds. So childhood wounds. They could also add emotional. So heal emotional childhood wounds. Because again, in the context of this article, I understand that it's emotional wounds. But if I just saw these 3 words, heal childhood wounds, I might assume assume, without knowing the context, I might assume they're talking about an injury that you had as a child, okay? So you could add the word emotional to describe what type of childhood wounds, to heal emotional childhood wounds and set you up for a healthier, more emotionally stable existence as an adult. Okay, so here, set you up for something. This is a really great expression. It simply means to prepare you. So hopefully you're thinking, watching J4's English lessons. Now my verb is set. You conjugate this. In this case, it's conjugated with watching, which is a gerund expression, which is conjugated as it as the subject. So that's why we have this s here. The past simple of set, to set, is set. Okay, so this is the past simple. It has to be the past simple because if it were the present simple, it would not be grammatically correct because you need this s. So watching J4's English lessons sets me up for success, prepares me for success. Success is a noun. You can also use this expression with the infinitive. Watching J4's English lessons set me up. So this is the past simple, is a completed past action to succeed. So to succeed, this is the verb form, and then for, and then success is the noun. So I'll just write this as a noun so you remember. Noun. And then this is a past, and it's also a verb. So the verb is to succeed. So you remember that. So for something, in this case success, for success, to succeed, the infinitive. So in this case, it was for something, a healthier, more emotionally stable. So stable means you're not overly freaking out about something. You're just in a more calm, stable existence as an adult. That's the end of the article. What I'll do now is I'll read the article from start to finish, and you can focus on my pronunciation. It might be time to reparent yourself. Here's how to get started. If you spend much time on mental health Instagram or therapy talk, you might have come across talk of how to reparent yourself or your inner child. Maybe you rolled your eyes and kept scrolling. But if the concept intrigues you, there's good reason. Reparenting is actually a helpful framework that a growing number of therapists use with their clients. Imagine a 3-year-old is on a swing set and tries to jump off but falls. They scrape their knee and naturally start crying for their caregiver. The way their parent or caregiver reacts in this situation or any distressing event in childhood is crucial. When a kid is freaking out, it's because they don't have the brain development to calm down. So they need their caregiver, says Ariel Armas, PhD. Ideally, the caregiver would come to their aid and soothe the child in this scenario, teaching them how to calm down and that they are worthy of being cared for. But if the caregiver doesn't help, it may have lasting effects. These wounds from caregivers can show up in all your adult relationships, not just the romantic or platonic ones, but your work or acquaintance relationships as well. If your caregiver didn't show up for you when you needed them, you might believe your needs are not important or worth tending to, even if your logical mind can realize external factors were to blame. This can cause you to have anxiety in relationships or not set boundaries and instead act as a people pleaser because seeing others happy makes you feel safe emotionally. The result, you may need to reparent yourself, which simply means you give yourself what you didn't receive from your caregiver as a child. Whether it's providing yourself emotional validation or preparing the kinds of meals you were never offered, learning how to reparent yourself can help heal childhood wounds and set you up for a healthier, more emotionally stable existence as an adult.
Do you want me to make another lesson where we learn English with the news? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.